Hi, welcome to the gun shop. So I thought I'd talk to you today about rifles, basically. Dan got asked a question, my little cameraman, Dan, he got asked a question about the difference between a 4.52 and a 4.55, so I thought I'd let you know the difference. First, I am going to do a little bit of boring history stuff because I feel like everybody needs to know a little bit about the companies that they're buying their guns from, like where they come from would always be a little bit nice. So, most people get a little bit confused between CZ and Bruno. Obviously they're both from Czechoslovakia, which is now Czech Republic. They're both in Czech Republic. So, basically, in 1918, Bruno was made by the state. They wanted them to make some military arms for them, and they made guns like the German Mauser, so that they could make some guns for war. Then in 1924 they started making cars, bikes, aeroplane engines. I think they made some typewriters at one point, like if you can name it, they probably tried to make it at some point. CZ came along a little bit later in 1936. So they were made by the National Defence Council, basically for World War II, to make some machine guns, some military pistols, guns for war. Post-war they started making civilian guns, so they started making sort of sporting arms. They made some for their police units, but basically they started concentrating on hunting guns. So basically, both of them were making military weapons for the Czech government, so there was a lot of crossover in what they were asked to make. Some of the guns went from one factory to the other factory just because the Czech government told them to. In 2004, Bruno were acquired by a different company who already had shares in CZ, so they became quite closely linked by that. And then this link was sort of strengthened when the director, or the safety director of CZ, became the director of Bruno. So at this point they may as well be the same company, just in different factories. However, Bruno kind of kept themselves slightly separate. They still have their marks, and CZ still have marks as well. So Bruno now distribute their guns through CZ, and CZ USA, just the people that are distributing them in America, are advertising Bruno as their newest brand. So the two versions that I have here are both synthetic stocks. I've just chosen them because we happen to have both a 4.52 and a 4.55 in synthetic, but there's also Turkish walnut and beech versions that you could have. I've also chosen the American version, but again, if you have a look on their website, there are loads of variations. I think there's about 10 different types that you could have had. The American version has got a dovetail groove so that you can put your mounts on top of there. So all CZ rifles come with a 5-shot magazine that just slips into the bottom there. It sits relatively flush. It's not perfect, which I kind of like the ones where they're basically hidden, but each to their own. If you decide that 5 shots isn't enough, you can actually upgrade to the 10-shot version. And let's face it, why wouldn't you? They don't actually come with them though, you do have to ask them separately. So, in 2011 they just stopped making this. They still make the left-handed version, which has a bolt on the left side instead, which I think is actually really good because even most ambidextrous ones have a beautiful stock that you can put your cheek on, but you still have to use your right hand, whichever side you're doing it. So they do still make that one in 4.52, but everything else that they can do for you is in the 4.55. I don't know if you can see, but they made this one in a soft touch synthetic rather than the slightly rougher one. Just basically everything that they've done is for comfort. That's most of the complaints. The main difference about the two of them is that this one has interchangeable barrels. So if you want to change your gun from a 17 HMR to a 2.2, you can. It's really easy. You just have to switch the barrels over, and they've made it so that you're not going to break your gun in the process. So while they were changing everything about the barrel, they've also changed the way that the barrel, the action and the stock connect. So on the bottom here, which I think Dan's going to show you a picture of in a second, they've changed the screws. Basically what they've actually done is made it so that this one, you can put a 5 underneath it. they've made the barrels perfectly floating. It makes it way more accurate because the barrels can just vibrate exactly as they want to, and it doesn't work quite as well in the 452. There were a lot of complaints about this, so they fixed it for you. So a couple of other things that they've changed. They have made the grip slightly different. It's just more comfortable. They've changed how the pistol grip works. We've got some photos where hopefully you can see it, but where they're both black guns it's a little bit hard, so feel free to pop in and find out for yourself the differences. But they've made the pistol grip a little bit different, and on some of them they have changed the sights. So this version has very much stayed the same, it's just got a rail for you to mount a dovetail mount onto. But they do have some, they've got the Lux and the Trainer. Both of those, they've changed it so that the rear sight can adjust for windage and elevation, and the front sight is just a little bit easier to aim precisely with. Other than that, they've really not changed all that much about it. They've just sort of updated it a little bit, and the only reason that the 452 has stopped is because this one is just a little bit nicer to use. But to be honest, if you're thinking of buying a second-hand one, you probably won't notice the differences, unless you're left-handed, in which case you do need a 452. I think I've answered everything, but if you have any questions, let me know and I will try to answer them for you.